on Tanpura. Now, Vrinda has got, her background is known to everybody, that she is a daughter of Aruna Rao, who has been a student of Agra Gharana Parampara. So she has had the early training from her mother, and later on from Kirana Gharana also, from Pandit Firoz Dastur, and of course to a certain extent our
Pandit Batuk Dewanji.
But I was to come to that. Batuk Dewanji I wanted to keep a little later. But before that, in the university we had a Dr. Vidyadhar Vyas.
No. Pandit Firoz Dastur in the Mumbai University.
But MF, you did Master of Fine Arts under
Firoz Dastur. And then of course later on I went on to studying under Pandit Babanrao Haldankar, who is my mother's Guru Bhai. So again back to the Agra Gaiki.
Then of course Uday Raikar, he has been a disciple of Pandit Taranath Rao, H. Taranath Rao, and he has been a very close friend of ours, a good commercial artist as well as a very accomplished tabla player. Niranjan Lele is a disciple of Pandit Tulsidas Borkar. So we all are here with you today, and I request Vrinda to begin today's.
Thank you so much for inviting me here today. But as Prakash said, he says our job has been made easier, but I feel my job has been made doubly difficult. In fact, in double jeopardy, because Sadanand has spoken so much, he's enlightened us so much, and he's a much senior, very enlightened guru, as well as a musicologist in his own right. And of course the lunch, that is the double other trouble. After having lunch, they are making me sing, so that is the second problem that I am having. But today, after Sadanand's very enlightened explanation, I wouldn't profess to be a musicologist or a historian of art historian or music historian, or even a guru or a speaker in that sense. But today I'm going to just chat with you as a performing artist, as my experiences as a performing artist, as and how by and by as I have learnt from my different gurus. And so I hope I shall
certainly
enlighten you in that respect, and I would like your involvement also, your participation. You're free to ask me any questions, or even if you have any suggestions. Prakash has told me to take the aid of popular music also in explaining the rags. Whenever I explain a rag, say the swaras of a rag, he has asked me to give the examples of to make things easier for the audience, because the audience would have heard several Natya Sangeet, film song, bhajan, abhang. So in that sense, I hope I'll get your help also. When we talk of sound, a little basics about how the rag came into being, as you asked me to say. When I think of sound, probably it's the Omkar which first came, that everybody knows. It was the celestial sound Omkar which encompassed the whole environment, and in fact created our universe, and the universe expanded and elaborated itself because of the Omkar. And so we talk about the Vedic era, when the Omkar gave way to the 3 notes of the Vedas. Swar. So in the Vedic shlokas, of course, you know that only the 3 swaras which were close to Shadja, sa, re, sa, only these 3 swaras, sahana भुनक्तु सहनो भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहे तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहे. Only the three notes were there in most of the Vedic mantras, and later we find that it is the participation, it is the endeavor of the common people in the various regions of India which contributed to creating the whole saptak, the regional folk music and the regional music of every place. And so folk music plays a very important part in the creation of our rags, because that is how the swaras increased into 5 notes from 3, because in folk music we generally find only 5 notes. In Mand and Pahadi, there are 5 important notes. Most of the folk music has the Shuddha swara and the 5 notes. I can think of Ghumar in Rajasthan and in the Bengali Bhatiyali and so many other things. But I can only think of which I have heard, the Ovi, the Marathi Ovi, which my mother used to know, and it had these 5 swaras. So, ni sa re sa, from there we go on to sa ni sa re ga ma ga re ni sa, the 5 swaras. Olya haladite dari valavana घरी केळवणा कन्येचे. This is the typical ovi. घाणा भरियेला विडा ठेवियेला कुळाचे दैवताला आमंत्रण. ओल्या हळदीचे दारी वाळवण. So from here I in fact directly find that many of our rags, Bilaval, Yaman, Bihag, many of these rags must have come from this. For example, sa sa ga ma sa ga ma ga re ni sa ga ma gitana. You can see a direct connection here. वाळवण वाळवण कन्येचा गीतन दिलावल, कुतुब दिलावल famous song by my Guru's Ustad. Tero rang roop chhab dekhat, tero rang roop chhab dekhat, tero rang roop chhab dekhat, jiya sukh paave nis din pyaro, tero rang roop chhab dekhat, tero rang chhab dekhat, jiya sukh paave nis din pyaro. You almost feel this has come from this OV. Tan man dhan yo chhavar karaho, tan man dhan, tan man dhan yo chhavar karaho, pran piya more jag ujiyar. So this is how Bilawal and maybe most of the Shuddha ragas came into being. In fact, as we go along, I'll tell you when the Shuddha ragas come, Hamir, Yaman and Bihag and all those, when they come, how these Siddha ragas, these are the basic foundation ragas, I would call. The foundation ragas of all the other complex ragas that came about later on. They say there are about 20 basic ragas which all musicians must know. Besides Bihag, Hamir, we could say in the morning ragas Todi, Lalit, then the Sarang Prakash, then Multani, Maru Bihag, and so many which are the basic, which lay the basic foundation of the entire structure of the whole entire monument of classical music.
You mentioned about what about? Hello. Hello. Which is where? Now it is all right, no? Put this on. You mentioned about Ovi, no? So likewise, I had just taken that Allah's Jilabai, who was known for her Kesariya, Kesariya Mand, which was very popular and very popularized by Shiva Hari, that is Shukmar Sharma and Hari Prasad Chaurasia. They used it in Lamme. But originally that is based on Kesariya, a folk tune of Rajasthan. I will just ask our friend Satish to play. Before that there is a sub.
From that OV, we find all these typical phrases. All these aspects,
right.
which you saw in her music also. All this, which come from folk music. We find this comes in Khamaj, this comes in Jinjoti, all the Komal Nishad ragas. There are several Jaijavanti and many of these rags which we have. We have this aspect coming. It's very useful, very important. So as we see, most of these basic rags came from the environment. As I said, the Madhyam they say is from the heron's cry, and the Gandhar, the goat's bleat. Ray comes from the cow calling its calf, Rishab. Then Pancham is of course the koyal, cuckoo. So this is how we find that the entire Saptak has formed, and the Baras were, all the 12 notes have been formed. And we find the emergence of different forms of music later on, into which we will not go into, not the details.
Think it is better to go into that Drupad aspect.
Drupad, before the Drupad, when these swaras came, we find the emergence of Samagayan. Samagayan comes from the Vedic chants only, and the grama murchanas, the different grams, and the murchanas meaning the scales, how these scales were formed. Sa ni ra pa ma ga re sa with nishad komal only, then sa re ga ma pa da ni with nishad shuddha. All these scales were formed, and we find jati gayan, prabandha sangeet, and all these aspects. And then of course we come to the drupad, in which around the 13th century the drupad comes as pure crystallization of the rag, in which we see the real complete aspect of the rag as we see today. So the image of the rag as we see today has all been there since the 13th century. So we know exactly how the music traveled thereafter, because once we know that the picture or the image of the rag has been formed, and then we can understand the forms, the different forms, drupad, khayal, which come later. So in the 13th century, as they say, there were two kinds of music, Margi Sangeet and Desi Sangeet. Margi Sangeet was temple music, which was sung only to the gods. And all this evolved from the Vedic chants, of course, the temple music, which later came to be known as Haveli Sangeet, which even today we find Jasraj and some people singing Haveli Sangeet. It was developed during the Vallabh Sampradaya of Nath Dwara and those temples there, and they developed it. This was it was a kind of drupad only, very structured, very rigidly structured, highly composed, and it had a very clear contour picture of a rag with very strict compositions, not too many deviations or improvisation. That was the drupad, which was basically the Haveli Sangeet. It is only called the drupad when around the 13th century, when the Mughal invasions, all the Muslim invasions came, Alauddin Khilji, and thereafter the Muhammad of Ghazni, Ghurye, and then the Mughals, and one after another, then we find the transformation of this Margi Sangeet into Desi Sangeet. That Desi Sangeet meaning Sangeet for the popular, Sangeet for the people. So then this is when you were talking about the Drupad came, when music came to be sung in the courts rather than in the temples. Of course, temple music remains as it is, that is the Haveli Sangeet, but the same sort of music was then later called the Drupad Sangeet, which was sung by Tansen. Of course, we know is one of the greatest luminaries in the firmament of music.
Yeah.
Tansen is known to be one of the greatest. So he popularized the Drupad during Akbar's time. That is, we have the clear evidence and a whole lot of treatises and books on that, in which we find the Drupad emerging with the Shuddha Ragas, mainly the not the Shuddha, I mean the Siddha Ragas. The Siddha Ragas, the Drupad is sung mainly in these basic, the foundation rags, all these rags which I mentioned.
I have, Vrinda, have.
Do you have a piece?
Yeah,
Oh, please. He would like to play a piece.
Zainuddin and Wasifuddin Daggers. One recording I have.
Okay.
And this is actually in Rag Kambuj.
These common swaras, I hope you realize that was there in these rags. So I think now we shall, after the Drupad, we shall come to the Khayal straight away, because in the 17th century we find the onset of the Khayal, the creation of the Khayal, and they say the Khayal was really created in the courts, Mughal courts, by Sadarang and Adarang in order to teach the women. That is one of the theory, that they wanted to simplify the Drupad, make it very soft and loosen it up a bit in a loose structure, so that they can improvise and sing as they wish. And Khayal itself means imagination, so it was left to the imagination of the singer. So in that sense, Khayal changes a lot from the Drupad, and in the 17th century onwards we find more and more complex ragas coming because of the imagination and of the singers, and expanse given to each performer and each composer to create anything out of his imagination. And so the Bilaval then has Bilaval Prakar, and Todi has Bilas Khani Todi and Bahaduri Todi, and you must have heard of Vijri Todi and several other Lachari Todi. Similarly in other rags also. So I felt that we start with the early morning ragas so that the time factor is also seen, because the time factor is quite an important aspect of our rag, and that is the most important aspect which we still follow. And the time factor is important because it was it came into being during the Haveli Sangeet itself, because the Ashta Prahar, that means the gods, they had to sing to the gods in the 8 times of the day. Early morning to wake up the idol, the murti, then for at the time of bath and washing, then bhojan, then shayan means the afternoon nap, and then the entertainment in the evening, and all these aspects which we humans also follow in our day-to-day life, that is followed in these raga, these things. So that is how these rags came. All in the 8 times of the day, the different rags were created before the gods, and that is how we find. So we start with the early morning rag. They say in fact at 4 a.m. these rags, Lalat, Bhairav and all these Bhairav That ragas come early in the morning, and so we will start from there, so you will get a clear picture of the entire day.
Start with Lalat.
Lalat is a very important rag in the morning period, and we are taught Lalat and Todi right in the beginning before having learned any other rag of the morning. Now Lalat, the speciality of Lalat is that the Madhyam is very important. Now in all these folk aspects you found that Gama Pa Pa Pancham was there. Pancham was very important in many of the folk ragas and these Shuddha ragas. But in Lalat, Ni Re Ga Ma 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 Ga Ma Ga Re Sa Ni Re Ga Ma. You come back to this Ma. Whatever alap you take, you come back to the Shuddha Ma. That is the important aspect. And then the beautiful sensitive phrase that is there, which is the speciality of Lalat, and from which you will be able to recognize Lalat. Whenever you hear it anywhere, you will be able to recognize Lalat because of this. The Rasaswara, I would call it. The Rasaswara or the Jeev of Yaman. Marathit म्हणतात ह्या रागाचा जीव. So the essence of this rag, the soul of this rag is na 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 na. Again we came to Ma. I'm sure you understood it quite well, because from all places we... Bajana lage mridanga aur kartal also of this, because it's an early morning rag, maybe the atmosphere of the temple, but bajan lage mridang aur kartal, chahu dis गूंजत शहनाइयां, गुनी जन गावत आरती ईश्वर की, पूजन की आई घड़ियां. So the mood also reflects. So immediately the mood of Lalat, very reflective, meditative mood early in the morning. So I personally feel all these morning ragas are like the alam. We start with a meditative.
The most unfortunate aspect is that the number of times that this raga used to be heard nearly 20 years ago, these days it has become perhaps an aprachalit rag. Lalat is not heard at all on the concert stage. I don't know what sort of a remark or what you feel. Perhaps is it because of the time frame?
Probably, but maybe because it's a very early morning rag and hardly any morning concerts are held these days. One very forgotten bandish, which Batuk Dewanji has taught me, Rasta Khan's very beautiful bandish which nobody has ever heard. Thadori banwari, thadori banwari, thadori very different sort of bandish. Then we have ragas like Todi. The Todi is very important in Pancham. I will just say Swara Sangati to differentiate Lalat from Pancham. Because sa re ga very, very crucial to Todi. Just as Madhyam was in Lalat. Lalat मध्ये मला मराठीत पण ते बोलायला सांगितलंय काही काही जणांनी, तर थोडं मराठीत सांगेन. ललत म्हणजे जसा जीव स्वर मी म्हटलं मध्यम आहे, मध्यमवर हे होत होतं, तसं तोडीमध्ये पंचम तो कधी येतो आणि इतका जॉय खुशी देऊन जातो हा स्वर. रे ग म रे ग म ध म ध नि ध म ध नि म ध नि ध प म ध म ग म रे ग रे सा सा रे ग म रे ग म ध म ग म ध नि म ध नि ध प म प ध म ग म रे ग रे सा. Here again we find Bandishes. I'll just sing a line for you. Shiva Mahadev, because as I said, the meditative mood is still going on.
Yeah.
So Shiva Mahadev Narahara Avinashi Vishwambhara Teen Lokate Todi, the Pancham is very strong. Now we find once the Pancham has come bright and strong, we find the morning also brightening up, and we find these mid-morning ragas coming with all the Shuddha Swaras in full glow, very bright, beautiful Swaras of the Bilaval Thaat, in which of course I sang to you Kukub Bilaval. Of Bilaval. Re ga pa ma ma dha ga ma dha pa dha ni dha pa dha ga ri dha na. Similarly, Alaya Bilaval you must have heard, which is the most famous of Bilavals. Alaya Bilaval is, do you have a piece to play? In Alaya Bilaval, sa re re ga ga pa pa ni ni sa, same way, ga गैया गैलो तीन आंदोलन लो ब्रिज के बिलावल So again I'm sure you're reminded of this folk element and the OV which I sang. Again these sa ni da pa da ga re ga pa ma. So the Shuddha ragas, mostly the bilavals have this, most of the bilavals have this ang. This is the main swarup of all the bilavals. I sang Puput bilaval first and then this was Alaya bilaval. Again in this part we have several other ragas with Shuddha swaras. In the bilaval khat, there is Deskar is there, then there is a rag Hindol also is there, Hindol is there. And several ragas are there. Just like in the Lalit group, we had Bhairav, all the Bhairav ragas. We had Vibhas, Bhairav, Bhatiyar, which we had played in the morning. We had played Bhatiyar. Similarly, in this group, we have all the Shuddha ragas for us. In Hindol, actually, there is a beautiful song and tarana by my guru, Babanrao Haldankar. I'll just show you that tarana. Hindol you must have heard, I'm sure you're familiar with it. I can't think of any popular song to, do you remember any popular song to, Marathi song? Ramyahi Swaragauna Ramyahi Swaragauna See, this is the classical song.